So the main component under the DES, similar to the NEP, if anybody was part of it, is the solar hybrid mini grid for economic development, standalone solar systems or solutions, productive uses, and urban access rooftop solar on a subnational level. So as I said, we're trying to scale up now and target more or reach a wider audience. So under the DES, for the mini grids, isolated mini grids, we're targeting over 3 million upcoming members to be electrified through the solar power isolated mini grids in rural areas. We're targeting 0.8 million to be provided through interconnected mini grids, 17,000 agro businesses through SAS or mini grid power equipment, so standalone systems or mini grids, and over 10 million or more to be powered through solar home systems. So that's our main target now. So we're really aiming and being ambitious under the DES. So I'll go straight to the solar hybrid mini grid components. So the aim of this is to develop private sector mini grids in unserved and underserved areas. And we're doing it through two key funding windows and different categories of the mini grid. So the first funding window is the minimum subsidy tender, and this aims to aggregate demand and prepare portfolios for mini grids for tender. So for this particular program, the REA, it's REA and DISCO-led, if it's interconnected, or REA-led if it's isolated. And this is when we identify the sites, we carry out initial studies on the sites, and then we tender out the sites for interested developers to participate in. And this mini grids will also be private owned. So it's all our programs run as a result-based program. So the financing, ownership, and operation will be on the private sector or the developer. And once we tender out and the site is selected, then we'll talk a bit about the processes and the later slides. And then we have the performance-based grants, which is developer-led. So for this, the developers are responsible for identifying their sites, they carry out their own studies, and then they bring it to us, and then we evaluate based on minimum standards or specifications they have to meet or regulations. Now for the minimum subsidy tender, the subsidy or the grant is derived through the bid or the tender. So any developer that goes and does the studies, because we give them a chance to do their studies, they're able to let us know what they think the minimum grant they need to carry out the projects. And that's how the grant is determined for the minimum subsidy tender. For the performance-based grant is predetermined, so going into the program, you already know what the grant is for sites. And under the NEP for the previous program, we had one fixed grant amount, regardless of the sites. But as we mentioned earlier, one of the things we're trying to do now is make sure we're differentiating the grants and putting subsidies on the site level now. So different sites will have different grant levels, both according to their categories, so you can hear. So the harder to reach, the more complicated, it will have a higher grant. The less more viable, it will have a lower grant or slightly lower grant. And we're implementing this under three main categories. So we have the isolated mini grids, which is rural communities. Interconnected mini grids, which is rural to peri-urban. And solar rooftop, which is peri-urban to urban. And the solar rooftop is the program being done on the state level. So the total funding for this and the program, all the components, is $410 million. So just to break it down further, targets for each category. So the interconnected mini grids, we're targeting 125 mini grids. And as we mentioned, all will be done under two approaches, the PBG and the MST. Right now, as of last year, we've launched for the minimum subsidy tender of the interconnected mini grid, so that's currently ongoing, the phase one of this. And the performance-based grants we're aiming to launch soon, maybe by the Q2. And the geographic scope for the interconnected mini grid is urban, peri-urban areas, defined as bands C and below by the DISCOs. And as mentioned, is REA DISCO-led, and the subsidy type. So unlike the isolated mini grids, what we're trying to do is increase reliability, and so the subsidies for this is per capex, percentage of capex. Another reason is because we understand that these areas require, because of the demand need is, or the demand is different from isolated mini grids. It requires higher capacities. So the subsidies will be percentage of the capex. And mini grids of up to 10 megawatts will be allowed under the interconnector mini grids. For the isolated, we're targeting 1,100 mini grids. And currently, we've launched the platform for the performance-based grants. So it's open and it's on a rolling basis for developers to apply anytime it's ready. The geographic scope is rural and remote areas for the isolated mini grids, off-grid areas, unserved areas, and it will be developer-led. So as I said, the PVG is being led by the developer. And the mini grids we're expecting up to 1 megawatts for this particular component. So unlike this, we're trying to create access to power. So the isolated mini grids will be done, subsidies will be done on a per connection basis. So for every connection you achieve is multiplied by the grants for the site to know the total grants for that particular site. So just a quick look on the process for the performance-based grant, isolated mini grids. Starting with, so it's done in 4 stages. The first is the qualification stage, which is where we look at the company's due diligence, the company's background, their financial capacities, their technical background or experience, and also their company documents ensuring their legal entities and they're incorporated and up to date with their taxes. So we do all our applications online through a platform called Odyssey platform. And this is where we do all our evaluations, our verifications down the line. So the first step is to register through the REA website to get access to the platform. And once you do, you're able to access documents on the platform. So every guide a complete guide for the requirements for each stage, complete guide on the templates that we'll provide as well, that you need to submit, and also other requirements, so regulatory, environmental, and social technical requirements at this stage we need. So once we evaluate, depending on the results, so if it's approved, you get notification and you get access to a geospatial platform that we use called the VITA platform. And with this is where we mapped out the whole country to be able to identify sites online and see the grants assigned to the sites and also the different parameters or characteristics of that site that helps with financial modeling and investment planning. If it's not approved, you get a notification to send in clarifications on information required. So if there's missing information, if there's basically notifying you of the reasons why you haven't passed that stage. And once you get access and you're able to identify your sites, you're ready to submit, we go to the next stage, which is the site-specific stage. And this is where you submit documents specific to your site. So the environmental and social requirements such as engagement of the community, rigorous mechanism on the base level, exclusivity agreements with the community, and then technical requirements like looking at the different standards and components and specifications you intend to deploy. So your PV modules, your generators, etc. And the same process applies. So once you submit, you evaluate, and depending on your results, if it's approved, you get an approval from management, and then you get a notification of approval. If not, then we send in full clarifications for you to send. So it's done on a rolling basis, so we are open to people correcting any issues they have. And then the next step is a grant agreement signing. So after you get a notification, you sign a standardized non-negotiable grant agreements that is 24 months. So we're giving developers 1 year from the signing of the agreement or the execution date to commission their mini grids. And that's the first date or deadline, I guess, for the grant agreement. Once they're able to achieve that milestone, then they're given an extra year to make all their connections. And also, one of the things we're looking at now is ensuring they reach a certain utilization rate. We'll discuss that in a bit. And then once you sign, you construct your mini grids, and then you can send in for your claims. And this is where we verify that yes, you have met all the requirements we have, all our milestones, and then you get your disbursement. So we verify through 2 main processes. We have an independent verifying agent who carries out a remote verification and physical verification. So one of the features of Odyssey is to be able to API link all the meters to the Odyssey platform, and this allows us to see live consumption rates and information that helps with more remote verification stuff. And we also follow up with the home verification. And then down the line, we do spot checks or physical checks, or if we're not able to get access to the meters live, we have to do a physical verification. So just ensuring that we are actually paying for the results on ground. So far in the program now, just to take us through the status of the PBG so far. So we have over 300 plus companies registered on the platform. So they've registered with the REA website to have access to the platform. So far we have 69. I think as of today we have 70 applicants with applications fully submitted. 132 sites have been submitted for evaluations, and we're currently about to hit a milestone on the program to sign 11 mini grant agreements for 11 sites. So the grant process, once you sign, we complete your mini grids. There are two main milestones. The first is done on the commissioning of the mini grid and connections of targeted customers. So at this stage, we don't expect you to connect 100%, but if you do, all the better, all the good for the developer. But we expect that you have laid some connections now as you commission. So once you connect and you send it to us, the grant to be dispersed is 80% of the meters connected and fully integrated at commissioning. So 80% of whatever number of connections were achieved at commissioning. For milestone 2, this is where we give a year to ensure all connections are achieved and also reaching a certain utilization rate. So what we're trying to do is ensure you're not just connecting, you're actually also fully utilizing this mini grids in a sustainable way. So this way you can claim the balance amount, and we expect a minimum average consumption of 30 kilowatts is aggregated for the mini grid to prove performance of the plants. And then we also expect that all connections achieved have a consumption data above 0. So we won't take a situation where only a few have met the 30 kilowatts. We want to make sure all the meters connected are actually being successfully used. So let me just quickly brief on interconnected mini grids because of time. So as I said, this is a tender that is being carried out and is done through 4 stages as well. So there's the initial selection stage where developers send in, similar to the PBG. So this is where you send in all your company documents, we check your financial capacity, and also we check your technical capacity or technical experience. And then once this stage is done, or we've completed evaluations, certain if we shortlist successful developers, and they move on to the request for proposal. And this is where we ask the successful shortlisted developers to send in their proposals, which is the stage we're currently in now. So once they send in their technical or financial proposals and it's approved, they sign the agreement, and the process follows similar to the PVG. So they sign the agreement, construct the mini grids, and they're given the same timeline, and then grant disbursements. So just a brief of the tender we're currently carrying out now. So we went to the disclosed, and they provided us 300 plus sites that need interconnected interventions. And we were able to further shortlist sites to 40 to tender out on the first phase for the MST. So these 40 locations are done through 8 disclosed at the moment. AEDC has 8 in FCT and Kogi, BEDC, 5 in Delta and Ondo, Ibadan Disco, so I just realized I'm calling out the acronyms, 6 in Oyo, Ikeja Disco, 2 in Lagos, Kano Disco, 5 in Kano State, Port Harcourt has give us 4, always tendering 4 in Akwa Ibom and Rivers, and then Yoruba Disco, 10 in Adamawa, Taraba and Yobe State. So for all of this, network audits and demand assessment were conducted on the locations, and this will be provided on the RFP tender as well. So the selection process is done through 2 main tier systems. So the first tier is aiming for developers that can design, finance, implement, and operate multiple interconnected mini-grids and village generation projects. So these are the larger capacity projects. We are on the tier 1 and the tier 2 is multiple interconnected mini-grids, but doesn't have the embedded generation projects that tend to have larger capacities. So the difference that tier 1, because of the embedded generation, requires additional finance and technical capabilities, but more complicated. And through the initial selections, where we based on the criteria, based on the submissions, the financial and technical that we group and available tier 1 and tier 2. So the one has also MST is slightly different. So we're starting from the advanced payments, so providing an advanced guarantee pay for guarantee to have accelerated deployment at the signing of the agreement, and those are almost 20% of the grant. For the milestone 2, this is done when you commission interconnected assets and actually connect it to the grid. So the same as we give you able to conversion and to interconnect the asset to the grid. And the third milestone is about attaining certain hours, which will be attained through the RFP stage. Updating hours of supply to the plant over a 6-month period, and this might have become about 20% of the grant. So quick on the product timeline. So Q4 last year we launched the program, finished the project implementation of the program and executed the deals, tendered out the ISD, first phase of the minimum subsidy and the ING. And kind of workshops and evaluations. So now we're at the RFP stage in this quarter. Last year we also went through Ascent Mini-Grids platform, and I'm about to sign the first grant agreement. The balance is still ongoing. And we're currently now trying to finalize the performance-based grant ING program to launch it as well in Q2. So that's it for now. I'll hand over to my colleague. So since take us to the solo for public institutions. Thank you.
Good morning everyone. Welcome to Abuja. So my name is Tosin Makaya. I'm the public institutions and some national intervention specialist at the REA. So I'm going to be giving a presentation on the solar rooftop project for public institutions. And as I mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, that this is one of the new initiatives to be implemented by the sub-component under the DRE. So this project stems from recent developments as well as the opportunities that have been provided by virtue of the Electricity Act of 2023 by those states autonomy over the electricity market. The project is also in line the National Electrification Strategy and Implementation Plan, the development of which is being spearheaded by the REA in collaboration with the World Bank. So I'm sure many of us will have maybe seen the news or attending interesting REAs engagement with states. So this is all connected. One of the elements of the message is for the federal government, here being represented by the REA, to engage with states towards forming strategic partnerships that will allow for national electrification. So this project is one of such initiatives that will support in that regard. Now the aim of the project itself is to kickstart the deployment of decentralized PV solutions for public institutions across the nation, and to enable them to have clean, or should I say, environment-friendly, reliable and sustainable power for these institutions. And also just to enhance the service delivery of the institutions. The project itself is going to be implemented on a sub-national level. So in the course of the day, we're going to begin that term with sub-national intervention solar project. So it's being implemented at the sub-national level in collaboration with the REA. REA is providing support to the states to ensure the successful execution of the project. Currently, we have commenced implementation with the pilot project in Lagos State, but the overall goal is to ensure that other states benefit from this project. And the reason why Lagos State has been chosen for the pilot is because It has met the eligibility criteria that have been set by the project, and we have attained a significant level of readiness to be able to implement projects of this nature. And so Lagos State has prioritized its public health institutions to benefit from this project, and has shortlisted or selected 32 general hospitals across the state to benefit from this. With regards to funding, the amount allocated to this component is $20 million. For the project of development, in terms of the business model, we intend to use an energy as a service model for this project, and the essence is just to ensure sustainability of the project. So, the Renewable Energy Service company, developers, and a number of you are attending physically and also virtually, will be required to lead the financing, the design, the installations, and the operations and maintenance of the project. However, what the federal government will be providing is a percentage of the capex. Now, some are currently unwilling to determine the exact percentage, but what we will be given is a percentage of that capex. Also, it's still a resource-based framework that we're using on this project. So, even if we are going to give a percentage of the capex, the developer or the renewable energy service companies will be required to meet predetermined conditions or milestones or outcomes that have been set by the project before disbursements or payments can be made to them. With regard to the application process, it's similar to many other projects that I'm sure most of you have applied for. And in this case, there will be an initial selection, and then after that, those that have been shortlisted will move on to the RFP stage. Once that is done, once we have concluded and validated RFP, the successful applicants will be signing grant agreements with the REA. And so the difference now is, apart from just signing, you're not just going to be signing an agreement to deploy the solutions to private institutions. The contract is going to be inclusive of a 10-year operations and maintenance by the renewable energy service company. So it's a combined contract of you deploy the solutions and then you operate and maintain it for 10 years. And so I think maybe the next question will be, how do we guarantee payment, operations and maintenance payments from public institutions? So one thing, and this is where the state governments come in, which is if they don't have the criteria to be able to access funding under the DRE, is that the state government have to be willing and committed to making this operations and maintenance costs. So we must also, apart from that, we have to guarantee the payment. So there's going to be signing of agreements through the state that will ensure that the payments are guaranteed.
So we are currently at preliminary stages, and we've been working with the Lagos State government. They are represented by the Lagos State Electricity Agency, formerly known as the Lagos State Electricity Board. So we've been working with them and are at preliminary stages of the project. However, in terms of what we've achieved so far, we have the site identification. So as I mentioned, Lagos State has selected 32 general hospitals to benefit from this project. So these hospitals are diesel generator set reliant, and so those are one of the things that were factored into when identifying them. We set up a project, so Lagos State has set up a project implementation unit. Within that Lagos State Electricity Agency, they have set up a PIU that will be dedicated to this project, work with the REA towards ensuring the execution of the project. We also at the REA developed a project implementation manual for them to guide them and just to be clear on the procedures and processes required to implement projects of this nature. We also signed a collaboration agreement just last week with the Lagos State, that was on the 14th, just to be very clear again on the roles and responsibilities of each parties and expectations towards a successful outcome. Ongoing currently are the energy audits and other feasibility assessments that will help us in determining a number of parameters for this project. And the next step now is to conclude on the energy audits and other feasibility assessments, and also develop the bidding documents that will be required for the project. So that will be all from my end on the solar rooftop project. Thank you.
Okay, so I think this could be a good time to take a few questions from the audience. If the REA team agrees, it's a very important topic.
The question two is that we notice that there are different amounts, dollar per value connection being associated for certain sites of a similar profile. We want to hear more about what is the logic for that, right? So that we understand the criteria for assigning a dollar value for a particular site when a site of similar profile in the same region, in the same LGA is a different. Thank you.
Hadiza, please confirm you got the question.
Please don't unmute your mics without being asked to do so. Thank you very much.
Hadiza, did you get the question? Okay. Hadiza. Okay, so the next.
Thank you to the All On team. My name is Mahmoud from Mask Nigeria Limited. Okay, my first question is the question previously asked. We participated in the NEP PBG program. So, and you would notice some of the sites during the NEP PBG had grants, and now sites that are within that same vicinity do not have any allocated grants. We would like to understand more on this, because for some of us that participated in the NEP PBG, we had some of these sites in our pipeline pending the availability of funds, etc. My second question is regarding the interconnected mini grids that was previously discussed to be in partnership with the DISCOs, which I think to our understanding, developers could go into tripartite agreement with DISCOs and develop communities that are connected but don't have sufficient power supply. So please, if you can talk more about that and the possible timeline for the rollout of that program. Thank you.
Questions online? Okay, there's someone in the room. Okay. So if you have questions, you can actually drop them in the chat box, please.
Thank you so much. Abiodun Adeboye from Protegia. So I have a questions around neighboring communities where we have like a larger community and a smaller community that are very close to each other. So I'm kind of looking at a possibility of implementing a centralized generation because of, let's say, the smaller communities don't have the commercial viability for you to have like a independent mini grid for them. But on the VIDA map, it's positioned as like an individual mini grid. Is there a feasibility that is possible by REA? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any question online? While we are waiting, I think we can respond to the ones that have been asked. Is that okay?
So how do you repeat that? I didn't get that. But the last question I heard was using a centralized mini-grid for 2 communities, if I'm correct. So we do allow that for cluster communities for a particular, or communities for one mini-grid. The only thing you have to meet with us on is how you intend to do the engagement for those 2 communities. So the environmental and social funds one that will be a bit complicated. But the technical aspect, as long as you're able to show that people how to meet, it's okay. We allow for that in the program. So just really confirm how you're going to carry out the engagements on those 2 communities and make sure the cooperation on those 2 communities. The first question, sorry, can you be repeated? And the second question.
Hi, Khadija. My name is Ati. So my first question is, what is to get a feedback from the point of site submission, site-specific submission?
Okay, so the lead time typically aimed for site submission, because it's a lot, and what people send out in portfolios between 2 weeks to a month, depending on the frequency. Because it's a first come first serve application or review that we do. So depending on how much you have, that we need to evaluate the size of the portfolio. So that can take a bit of time.
Okay, thanks. And my second, I think it's similar to my colleague sitting next to me, is that we noticed that for a certain site, a dollar value per connection assigned is different than the sites which are really neighbor to the same sites and within the same LGA. And we like to understand a bit more. And we also found a bit of a discrepancy in the data, I would say the profile assignment for these specific sites on the platform. So bit more understanding how how the dollar value per connection is being assigned to certain sites which are literally neighbor, and where we find that there is largely no difference and there are certain discrepancies in the data. So I can provide the specific site names as well, but bit more understanding how the dollar value per connection is being derived.
Okay, thank you. My own question is similar to the one just asked. I've noticed some communities don't have any grant assigned, while during the PBG or the NEP project of the PBG, communities within that vicinity had grants. How do these communities now pull out from these agreements without having any problems with these developers? And will these agreements be accepted by the REA? Should there be any clash if these communities pull out from those type of agreements? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hadiza, should I go around the room, get all the questions, or you would like to respond? Question.
Okay, let me just respond on the first two, the similar issues and the grant discrepancy. So for that, you can share with us. The grants are actually determined through different categories. So the density of the buildings, the distance to the grid, the economic potential activity. So these are sort of parameters we looked at. And some neighborhood communities might be close together, but you can find that they actually also have different passes or shelter parameters that we look at and down as well. So for those that you see that are not assigned, you can always share with us and then we look into the platform. I think that's also maybe you're looking at Odyssey. I don't know if you have access to the Leader platform, which has assigned to over 30,000 communities. So you can share with us and then we look into the mini grids and then we can discuss from there why those particular mini grids have 30 different mini grids. And if you have the view on ground, it's also something that we listen to and we accept the feedback to update the platform as well. The second question was on the RNG, and kind of a broad question. So is it the timeline once because we've currently launched the first phase, which I mentioned in the slides, which is the first 40 sites to be tendered. And right now we're in the request for proposal phase for shortlisted developers. Then we will launch a subsequent phase 2 of it, and that will also be announced through, if you're part of our more ways to get notification to send your ISDs or your interest, and then also public platforms like the REA websites as well. And then the last question was exclusivity agreement. So we actually don't directly involve ourselves in the community and exclusivity agreement. If it's such an issue, I think it's supposed to be between the developers that have signed the agreements that have to agree, whether it's something that has to continue. We only look at the timelines, so if it's signed and it's exceeded the year, then we know that it's an expired exclusivity agreement. But we can't tell the developer to cut off the agreement because they haven't implemented it. So it's a discussion that I think can be had between both developers to try and see if there's a way to rectify or come up with a better solution. I think those are the questions. Did I miss any questions? Or is there further clarification?
Okay, all right. My name is Uja Godwin. I'm from Evalin Telesats Limited. Yeah, my question is around the slots for the MST program. So my question is, can a developer be allowed to choose his slot from a particular location where he thinks he has a comparative advantage. I really want to know, depending on what your strength is, if you feel you have a comparative advantage in an area or a state, can those slots be concentrated in those areas? Please, I need clarification on that.
To decide what lot, and usually done on a state level or district level. So it's up to the level to choose what lot they think they can participate in. So yes, depending on what we tender out, you can select which ones you want to tender or bid for. And then the performance-based grants, it's connected means you can also bring in your own sites with whoever the school or location you have like relationship with as well. That's under the performance-based grant that we're trying to launch by Q2, end of Q2.
So Fola Ekon, please go ahead. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Fola from Eco Energy. Thank you to the whole team. My question is just around, I just want to find out, is the tender just only for solar energy solutions? Are there no other acceptance for other renewable energy solutions? That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, so the focus now on the whole program is solar solutions. We're very much ventured out there, and we're also working towards for other programs under the REA. Where the net or the DES is mostly focused on solar solutions.
We would have Ibimina Young. Your question, please, straight to the question. Thank you.
Okay, good everyone. My name is, just as you've mentioned, Nigerian from Strong. We previously applied for the basic platform, but we did not get any response. As for the PST, I want to know if there's still a window or an opportunity where we could apply again. I don't know. It's been roughly 5 months since we last applied. There's no response, so I just want to know if there's still on board or there's another window where we could also apply again.
So if you can send us an email, and then we can share the status of your application. Okay, good.
So Derek Nwoko, over to you. 30 seconds, please. Thank you.
Please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Derek Nwoko, actually, I work with Transcope Energy, and I already put my question in the chat, but I'll just go ahead and just say right away. So my first question is about the disbursement of the grant. I mean, you mentioned your person mentioned on the call that the minimum subsidy tender or the grant disbursement will be issued at a percentage of capex. So I really want to know what percentage that would be of the overall capex. And she also mentioned that the product that will be selected will be the most feasible or most deployable, right? I also want to know like the metrics that will be used to determine the proposal, or to determine the proposals will be feasible, because I feel like this might also have an effect on the quality of the proposals, given the associated financial implications. The last question would just be to know if there is what's the highest amount of grants that can be issued to a developer, in the MST, the minimum subsidy tender for interconnected mini-grid. So yes, that's literally my questions.
So I think the first question was the exact percentage. So it's dependent on the amount of the level of intervention needed for a particular site. So the island is different from the isolated and more complicated in that regard. Some sites might require more work on the distribution, some might require less. So it's not a fixed capex of percentage amount. It depends on the amount. It should be shared actually with the RFP of work needed for a particular area. So it can be anything from 40 to almost like 60 or 70% of the capex, depending on how much work is needed in a particular area. The second question was because there are many things in between. Can you just repeat the second question?
So the second question was around the metrics used to determine what projects will be most feasible or deployable. because you mentioned that higher grants will be given to those that, the developers their proposals are easily deployable and less complicated. So I just wanted to know what metrics we will be used to determine that, given that there are some quality requirements that should be met and they will have associated financial implications.
So I think that what I mentioned that was under the isolated meters. So for the isolated meters, because it's predetermined the grants and we're trying to differentiate it according to the level of intervention per site. So if a site is highly commercial, very densely populated, really viable based on that kind of category, then it tends to have it's not as much of a high intervention compared to a site that is very hard to reach, like a main site, or more as populated, activity in the concepts are low, fear of security issues. So it's looking at those kind of parameters that helps us know, okay, this part is this a really viable site compared to this site that is not as viable, so we need a higher amount of funds for the isolated rate. The interconnected is the interconnected MST is determined through the RFP. So it's up to the developers to tell us this is the percentage of grants they require for their program and then the PBG. For the so the MST is through the tender, the developer will propose the amount of the grants required to carry out their project.
Okay. So the last question was just to say, is there a cap? Like, what's the highest amount of grants that has been issued or will be issued? Is that
the MST?
Yeah, for the MST, yeah.
And that's yet to be determined because we just usually launch the RFP on Friday. So we do have benchmarks, and we're seeing that we're not trying to exceed like 70% because we still need to ensure there's investments left in the program for sustainability. So based on the results we get from the RFP, it can change, it can stay the same. So that will also give us enough market studies as well to determine whether it's at capex. But we do have benchmarks for each site of what we expect. Maybe the developer comes with a justification or evidence of different reality, it can change.
Thank you very much.
The REA actually a second again. So the REA session, there are three components, as our colleague at the start had mentioned. So we'll just hand over to our colleague Toby Ogunlesi online to talk about the standalone solutions, that component as well. Toby.
Very good. Good morning, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Alright. So really quickly, so I don't waste anybody's time, I'll go through this presentation. So the standalone solar component is pretty much broken down into three major implementation models, where we have the supply side subsidy for tier 1 and tier 2 SHS systems, and then we also have what we now call the solar for business systems, which we are pretty much looking to provide clean energy to MSMEs and agro-processing clusters that already have their appliances in place. The last portion of it is now what we call the productive use of energy technology, which is looking at actually deploying productive use equipment and appliances for cooling, irrigation, milling, in some parts to support some level of electric mobility through the infrastructure, and then the last part is looking at emerging technology. Next slide. So these are the targets. What we have officially opened and launched right now is the SHS supply side subsidy, where we're looking at 2 million solar home systems across Nigeria. The geographic scope is rural and underserved, and we have some other slides that will probably speak to that. It's a developer-led approach. The subsidy type is the supply side, and it's fixed incentives based on different capacities. And the determination of the subsidy is it's an LGA methodology. For the solar for business and the productive use cases, those are still in the design, but we would have those operational before the end of this particular quarter. So speaking to the breakdown, what we've done is that we partnered with a company called VIDA, and VIDA has been able to break down the entire country into LGAs. Now, those LGAs are apportioned different rates based on logistics, security, access to energy, potential market size, which speaks to ability to pay, and then the market penetration. That's pretty much the historical sales from the inception of the NEP and maybe any other programs that have taken place. So with those ratings, we've been able to break up into this map that you see here now, where the red zones on the right are the actual hard to reach and deep rural areas, and then we also have the kind of brown, the light brown color, which are the medium and easier, well, not so rural, but they're also those areas that receive like a mid-subsidy level. The blue areas are the ones that receive the low subsidy, which are usually peri-urban or just outskirts or outside of the urbanized locations. And then those places covered in black make up the fourth level, which is what we call the exclusion zone, where any system sold within those parts would not receive any amount. Okay, so because this slides will be shared, I don't think we need to go through this in detail, but these are just the breakdown. Most of the exclusion zones obviously are from Lagos and other states, while we have exclusion zones in some other parts of the country. So any of these locations will not qualify for a single subsidy amount. So this is what we will speak to. Based on the LGA breakdown, if you look at this product tiers and tables, like I said in the beginning, we have 3 watt peak to 200 watt peak being the maximum for this particular portion of the component. Those red and hard to reach areas are the ones that will receive the 40% subsidy, while the other brown areas receive 25% and then the blue areas receive 15%. This is just to incentivize companies to move to more rural locations. We're currently on the verge of approving what the final grant rate should be, and these will be updated in the implementation manual and also the grant agreement for all applicants to see before they execute. But one other thing that we've also added is we've also added a pay-go incentive. So for whatever systems that are sold on pay-go, the companies will receive the base subsidy after the sale and the verification. But through the CRM, which I even mentioned, where we have companies integrate with the Odyssey platform, we would then look at consistent payments over 3 months. We chose 3 months because we know some people operate daily, some people operate weekly, some people operate monthly. So we've had a company under the previous MEP that had a quarterly payment plan just to give its customers enough time to raise funds. So depending on the payment plan which you operate, there are different levels. There's the accommodating and the 10% will be paid after 3 months. So after 3 months, depending on the plan that you submit to at the application stage, we would look at the different payment platforms and consolidate. So really quickly, the onboarding process. We also added what we call the data sharing agreement, which every single grantee must sign at the point of application before the application window is even opened for them to put in their submissions, just so that we are aligned on the roles and responsibilities and the data sharing. The application requirement cuts across 3 key areas. So for the company area, it really speaks to the company's incorporation status, right? Certificate of incorporation, a members, just to be sure that the company is in and then compliance with the statutory and regulatory documents. We also have the financial requirements where you look at your access to finance or stock inventory or any other opportunity you have. The customer identification is where we now speak to the work that CRM will have to do for us. where on each screen you are required to submit quite a lot of information. I can't list all that out right now, but for anybody that's qualified, the Odyssey platform has all this information listed. It speaks to gender, it speaks to women-led businesses, women-led households, and even public facilities. We're very big on customer service and after-sales service. Operational scale is just letting us know that you've been able to meet similar targets in the past and the way you plan to do in the future. The partnership of value chain that really speaks to you having agreements with either OEMs, collections agents, or even sales and distribution agents that are
that is the concept of this REA.
So it's all saying something. So go ahead. The skill and experience is speaking to the company's experience in the sector and the experience of the team members.
Please mute if you are not speaking, please. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, so speaking to the products, like I said before, under the smart multi-tier framework, we focus on tier 1 and tier 2. Currently now, at this inception phase, we are accepting Verso certification, but we are also working on a revised technical standard document that would see SUNCAP and MANCAP just to promote local manufacturing and also the local companies to bring in their own products. We have the environmental and social, where we look for your ESMS, we look at so many environmental and social documents. The good thing is that the moment you are able to register via the REA website and you have access to the Odyssey platform, we have like an application checklist document that breaks down each of the documents that form these categories of what the document of the submission requirements. You can also reach out to us at some point if you don't really understand some of them. We're happy to hold you through the process. Okay, so this speaks to the claim submission process. So, like I said, once you've gone through every single process, you get what we call the grant agreement. Once the grant agreement has been signed, any of the products that have been deemed eligible would be entitled to a grant amount after a year. We expect that companies will sell a minimum of 100 systems every month or aggregate it to 200 in 2 months. So step one of this, like I said, is access to the agents to determine eligible region. On the Odyssey map, VIDA has been able to give us a similar to the map that I showed you, pointing out the LGAs with the high and the low and the medium subsidy rates. The second step is for the companies to go and make the eligible sale in those regions. First part is at the end of each month, each company is given 2 weeks, is given up to the 14th of the new month to submit the claims for the previous month. We then check for the claims eligibility and then we begin the verification process through the IEA and the Odyssey platform. From there, we now move into the disbursement phase. So once the IEA is done, between the IEA, the GA, and all other parties involved, we will then come together, review the numbers, and come up with a disbursement request, which is then sent to the bank and the REA for sign off and approval. Once that is done, the first tranche payment goes out. But the second step is there's also a second tranche of payments that will go out once we confirm the top up from the IBA again or through the Odyssey too. There is also another verification step that we will go through, but we'll probably speak to that in the next slide, so this is the primary verification. The primary verification is conducted by the independent verification agents. The project actually onboards an IBA that goes around, they conduct phone calls and they also do field interviews to ensure that some of these systems are cited and they're actually the systems that we approved on the project. The other one is the remote verification, which will speak more to the top-up version of the conversation, where after we have verified through the IBA, the remote verification then kicks in to just ensure that those 3 consecutive payments, or depending on the number, depending on your business model, are stuck to. The
this is the secondary verification. So normally we have, because it's a federal government project, we're liable to audits and everything. So we also have internal and external auditors that sample at random, sometimes quarterly, sometimes biannually, and go and cite the systems themselves. We also have the impact assessment verifications that will take place by the end of this specialist throughout the part of the project. And then we also have some spot checks that we do on our own, just to ensure that there's customer satisfaction from use. This just speaks to what we've been doing with Odyssey. This just speaks to the real-time monitoring, and I think Hadiza touched on it a bit, where for systems that are GPS enabled, we can see consumption and usage data. For those that are not, then we just use it to track the payments that are being uploaded with the Odyssey platform.
Hi, Tony. Okay, so please, do you mind rounding up in the next, please, because we have limited time and All On hasn't presented at all. Sorry to cut you short. Are we enjoying this session? I know there's a phrase in Nigeria that says, "Now money they take, find money." But we're here, and the details in this room, I think, is very robust. Please, can we give REA a round of applause, please? Those online, please, let's give REA a round of applause. And please give All On a round of applause, please. Thank you so much. Okay, so Tommy, you have 2-3 minutes. Thank you. Apologies.
Thank you. So this is just a project time, and I think this is the last slide. So the application window did open in December. We were able to constitute an evaluation committee, and then we launched and operationalized the project. We have begun evaluations for a couple of companies. I think we have 30 companies that have submitted. We're working to operationalize some of the sub-components. So, for instance, the PE version, where we have just onboarded a company that is going to design the reverse auction methodology for that, and then we also have to onboard our legal firm, our GA and administrator. Then we're looking that before April ends, we sign grant agreements with the companies that have already qualified and gone through the evaluation process. So I believe that that's the end.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so All On, are we ready, or should we take 1 or 2 questions before the slides come up? Shaya, please confirm you can hear me. Abdulaziz, confirm you can share your screen.
The chair can hear you.
All right.
Trying to take questions.
Okay, that's fine. Questions in the room online? Hands up, please. Any question? Online? I
have one.
saw a question. I saw a comment on the chat box. Shaya, please, can you please read out the question so Toby can take it, please?
The way AJ in the chat has his hand up.
Okay. So you can unmute and speak, please.
I have a question. It's Mickey Lazar from Jane. It would be very helpful if we can have the email addresses of Ms. Hadiza and Mr. Toby, because the presentations were very fast and we need to read them thoroughly and maybe to come with follow-up questions. Thank you.
Hi, can you hear me? Speaking from the U.S.
Hi, all the way from the U.S. Ari, did you get the concerns you have?
Yes, I just wanted to ask a few questions, and I'm sorry for being obtuse. My first question is about the isolated mini-grids. You know, I've seen the grant amount discussed previously over the last year, and I wanted to know if that has been arrived at sort of finally, or what we can expect in terms of that PBG for the isolated grids on a per connection basis.
Hadiza, would you like to take that quick?
Okay, can you clarify the question? I think we have the final.
Yes, how much money would the PBG grant be on a per connection basis for the isolated mini grids? Is that known yet?
Yeah, it's known. It's public. Once you apply on the platform, you're able to access them. It's the range between $600 to $350 depending the connection. But
I see.
Public, you're only access the if you apply for the Odyssey platform, you should see the grant the site.
Sure, no problem. We're speaking from a finance basis, so we aren't necessarily applying for a grid ourselves. The second question is we have this 80% upon construction, 20% upon commissioning structure. Which is fantastic. My question is, what is the shortest period of time between completion of construction and final commissioning? I.e., what is the shortest period of time between which you might start your project and end the project in terms of getting 100% of the grant?
So the shortest is up to the developers. We don't restrict a minimum timeline. What we give is the maximum we can reach. So for commissioning, it's a year. For connecting or achieving our connection, it's an extra year we give, so 24 months altogether. But if the developer can achieve that in 6 months, all the better. So we don't really restrict we don't give a minimum timeline.
I think I may have made my question a little clumsy. Specifically,
for the want of time, do you mind typing it out first, Don?
Yes, I already did.
In the chat,
yeah.
Okay.
The question is simply, once you're done building the grid, right, construction is complete, what is the minimum sort of time period within which the commissioning observation period can be done?
Okay, so I'll just quickly answer that. So we have, there are 2 steps to it. One is the pre-commission test that is done by the Nigerian Electricity Management Agency, System Agency, NEMSA. And the second is us carrying out review. So we try not to hinder too much on the disbursement timeline. So either we do live at that spot if there's time, there is nothing to delay on you, then we can do a check, then it shouldn't take long to do the checks and disperse. It's up to the developer when they claim to us, we don't have control when they claim. And if not, then we carry on and then we do spot checks. So we rely on the NEMSA's pre-commissioning and then we do spot checks later to make sure it's achieved.
Thank you so much. That's clarity. I asked another question as well, but I'll take it offline. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Please, if I may
for your questions.
Please, if I may suggest,
can you type it in the chat box, please? Thank you.
No, it's just a quick suggestion because of time that you're clamoring for. Everybody's question should be typed, and then you just go ahead with the presentation.
Yes.
Nobody should be asking live questions any longer. Let everybody post their questions. You respond to them. That you send email to all of us, question and answers. You save time that way, please. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate. So I heard America, and I'm really excited. So everyone joining us, 166 people joining us from across the world, please. Can you tell us, in fact, everyone online, if you are in Lagos, Nigeria, please just put in the comment box, Lagos, Nigeria, Abuja, Nigeria, Ibadan, Nigeria, Niger Delta, US, Georgia, whatever it is. If anywhere you are joining us from, please drop it in the chat box. I am so interested in that data. Oh, London, UK, Lagos, Nigeria, Abuja, fantastic. Please keep those comments coming. And I'll be handing over to Sheye. The slide is up now for All On's session. Please, like he recommended, please drop your questions in the chat box while you're telling us where you are joining in from. Ibadan, fantastic. Okay, Sheye, over to you, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Buchi. Thanks very much everybody who's joined from all over the world, from Abuja, from Gombe, from Calabar, from the US, from everywhere. We're really glad to have you online and in the room. And it's very exciting times for the industry. And we're just really excited about what comes next from here. So with that, I'll just go straight into the presentation. And And so what we'll try to do in the presentation is to show content and, for people who know us. So most of the people in the room already know All On. Most of them are All On investees. And already know All On, and most of the people online might already know All On, but some don't. So we'll try to address information to both audiences. So what All On is All On is an investment vehicle. All On is a vehicle set up by Shell to tackle the energy access problem in Nigeria, and we do that through different means. One of the major means through which we do it is through investment, and in investing, we're investing for impact. So we're investing across different stages. We're investing at angel stage, we're investing at growth stage, we're investing at what we call the champion stage, and then we also do special programs. At angel, what we say as angel investing is we're writing, tickets up to 500K. We're considering that angel. Growth, we're considering higher than 500K, and those are usually companies that that at some level have found their product market fits. They're growing fast and they're raising capital for expansion. By the way, I just realized that I didn't have my video the entire time, so Aziz, if you don't mind, if you go back to the previous slide, still talking about it, yeah. So, and then the champions are the companies that are already have very strong market positioning, they have very clear strategy, they have high growth prospects, and they have a clear path to profitability, or might already be profitable, and they already have high impact. Special programs, we have many different programs. So for example, for several years, All On partnered to deliver the energy access challenge, energy access challenge, which many companies participated in, through which investments were made with tickets as little as $50,000, that got many companies in the space their first check and the first bump along the road to delivering the impact that we want. And why are we doing this? We're doing this for impact. We're trying to bring energy to all those underserved communities across the country, with all its attendant positive impacts. So the basic thesis is that if we do this, we invest in sustainable businesses, we invest in sustainable models, and those companies end up being profitable. But we want that, but what we want especially is the impact. And so the way we look at that impact is captured in the next slide, which is, and that is our North Star. That is the key thing that drives everything that we do, which is that we have a mandate to deliver 1 million new connections to energy through our investments by 2030. This is how we're judged, and it's and that's a key impact. And the thesis is that when we make this kind of investments, what then happens is that there are many other positive impacts that happen, which I'll come back to. So just going through the numbers, a few numbers of what we do. We've done 60 plus deals. We have greater than 50 investees. 37 of those investees, at least 37, are Nigerian owned and managed companies that we've invested in directly. And what you see below are some of those companies. There's no particular logic to selections, of totally random selection of companies that we've invested in, and we're very proud to back and have been a part of their journey. Next slide, please. and here you see our footprint. So when I say this is our footprint, I mean that this is really your footprint. I mean the people in the room. I mean our investees. And so what you see here is, impacts across the country, in virtually every state in Nigeria. And you would see that, and that impact is across different modes of delivery. So some of those are battery as a service, some of them, so we have assembly and manufacturing, we have mini grids ongoing, and completed across the country. We have solar refrigeration. We have standalone systems, as we saw in the last presentation. And then one of the things we highlight, especially in the blue marks, is our DAT program, which you'll hear more about as we go on. Next slide. So this is what we have been. What have we been in the industry? What would people say that All On has been? That's an introduction, and it's kind of like a reminder for people who already know us, which is we're Nigeria's most active energy access investors. We've been sector builders, we've contributed, because one of the platforms under which All On works is the enabling environment platform. And what we do that is to any kind of activity that enables and creates a platform for renewable energy and for energy access in Nigeria. And so we've contributed, for example, to in many ways to the success of the Renewable Energy Association of Nigeria, and so many other initiatives we've contributed to, for example, in conjunction with the REA, to the off-grid stakeholder forum for many years, and so on. What we have been is we've been patient capital, we've been flexible capital, and this is a very important point. Even though a lot of our investments are in the form of convertible instruments, but then we can do equity. As I mentioned, our ticket sizes have been as little as $50,000 and going up to more recently about $5 million. And as the industry has matured, as the industry has changed, we've changed our ticket sizes. So maybe 6 years ago, the average ticket size might have been $100,000 or $150,000. By a couple of years ago, it was up to maybe like $500,000. And then this year, with what we're doing, our ticket sizes are going up to maybe even $1 to $2 million. The average ticket size is going up to $1 to $2 million. So we're flexible. We keep looking at the environment, and we keep adapting our offerings to what the environment needs. We're impactful, and that's a point that I will talk more about. We have been trusted partners to our investees and to other investors. Is a major thing, another major thing, a major plank in what we do, and what we have been set up to do, which is to catalyze more finance, which is linked to the box being directly below it. And our partnerships are very important. We take them very seriously, and we're looking all the time for impactful partnerships, punchy partnerships that allow us to deliver our mandate and allow us to achieve the impact. We've been a committed supporter of national programs expanding energy access, and so that includes, for example, the NEP program that was kind of like a predecessor to the DRE program. We supported that. We supported a lot of developers, and through the DRE program, the total purpose of this event today is to signal to the community that we are very interested in supporting this program. We're aligned with the success of this program. We're aligned with the objectives of these programs, and that applies to so many other national programs. We use a lot of different instruments, we use a lot of different approaches. We're catalytic, and that means, for example, something that's very important to us is domesticating value chains and manufacturing in Nigeria. So whether that means supporting production of inverter systems, whether that means assembly of solar home systems, whether that means assembly of solar panels, whether that means anything else relating to global renewable energy value chains, domesticating it in Nigeria, that's something that we're very much interested in and want to promote. And then we're also very big on environmental, social, and governance. So I'll just give you an update on what we've done recently, where we have been recently. Next slide. In 2024, we have, we got a lot of approvals, the deals approved. We got maybe something like $15 million in approved deals. And by the way, that includes DAT deals. And just in the tombstones just above that, you'll see a couple of, we invested $2 million in Cobox. You would have seen a recent announcement of $3 million equity, $18 million equity raised by Energy, of which All On contributed about $3 million. That's in the news, and there'll be a few more announcements in the coming days and even coming weeks of deals, other deals that we closed in 2024 or at least got approvals for in 2024. What are we doing in 2025? Well, we want to nearly double our investment volume, our 2024 investment volume. Not only do we want to do that, we want to take new measures to manage our currency risk and the FX issues that everybody in the industry is dealing with, that has dealt with people in the industry. We want to find ways to manage that and to deal with it. We're looking at new partnerships relating to M300, and we are just ramping up and rejigging, souping up our DAT program to be able to do more with the DAT. And then again, as I mentioned, you'll hear more about that. Something that is happening that's a very big thing for All On is we've commissioned a very significant, extensive impact study, and the results of which will shape our offerings going forward. And so hopefully we'll be able to announce that later in the year. Next slide, please. So I probably used the word excited so many times in this presentation, and I am, and we are at All On, and I think people in this room really are. It feels like this is a very unique moment in Nigeria. I've been attending power events in Nigeria, privatization, this one, IPP, solar. I've been doing that for maybe 15 years or so or longer. But around energy access and rural electrification, this seems to be a unique moment. So with the DRE program, you get the sense that, the policy, the international development partners like the World Bank, and the likes are creating national programs. The regulators, the reforms, everything have positioned Nigeria, and really Nigeria is on the map globally, and people see that industry seems about to actually really gain a lot of traction. And the investors are motivated, financial sector is motivated, there seems to be a high level of mobilization, and we really have to take advantage of this. And then on top of the DRE program, something else came up that has increased the sense of this unique moment, which is the M300, which is Mission 300, which is an initiative of the World Bank and the African Development Bank, amongst other partners. I think I could have added SC for All. I could have added other partners that have since been convened. And it's a very ambitious program to connect 300 million Africans to electricity by 2030. And they've chosen, and that 2030 year is significant for us because that 2030 is the year that we also set for ourselves as a benchmark for what we want to achieve and what we want to drive in energy access in Nigeria. And the scale of ambition is really high. It's a renewed sense of urgency to change the trajectory and to achieve a whole lot more. And we see that the developers, which the REA also has come up with, a very apt name that we should all adopt, which is Renewable Energy Service Companies. You see that they have also matured, and you can see that they are, you have a full spectrum from, really strong, committed companies to even the ones who are still finding their fits. And that just shows that, it typifies the moment that we're in. Next slide, please. And so I'll just speak very briefly about the kind of companies and ventures that we fund. We're looking for companies, we're looking for ventures, also sometimes in some cases projects that are ambitious and have the ability to deliver a whole lot of new connections to unserved and underserved communities. We're looking for innovation, we're looking for people doing innovative stuff. We're looking for, at the heart of all of that, yes, you're trying to deliver connections, yes, you're being innovative, but do you have a sustainable business model? Yes, you have to have a sustainable business model. And whatever it is you're doing, the interesting thing about energy is that it's very site-specific. So whatever it is you're doing, you're deploying it somewhere. And that somewhere has a community that hosts it and has to buy into that, otherwise your projects don't succeed. Sustainability is very, very important. And these projects need to be, again, very, very important. This is how developers are going to win. This is how this industry is going to win. The solutions that we are delivering have to be cost competitive to the end user. There are going to be different types of projects, there are different configurations, there are different opportunities, different geographies, so many different configurations, but fundamentally we have to be doing our absolute best to build at the least cost possible in the most sustainable way. The other thing we're looking at for is, something else we're looking for is financial management competence. So this is where across board, even to some of the more mature ones, we find that the industry is lacking. Financial management is just generally weak, and this is something that we, through other means and other platforms that All On has, we've tried, for example, to support the industry by providing CFO as a service to some of the companies that we support at an earlier stage and so on. We're looking for experience, we're looking for savvy and passionate founders and management team, and we're looking for the ability to deliver financial results. Because as I mentioned before, the financial results are important because that's underpins sustainability, and that also underpins the ability to deliver something, electricity, energy that people can afford long term. Next slide, please. And so this just tells you, we fund from ideas to scale. Very similar to the first slide where it showed, I won't speak too much about it. Typical instruments, we invest pure equity, we invest convertibles, we invest loans, we invest straight loans. We also have the DAT program, which my colleague will go into very shortly. And then we have other types of instruments that we've considered. So for example, without getting lost in we're flexible and we consider many different instruments. Last slide, please. Is that the last slide? Yes. So thank you very much. And may I suggest people just note their questions down. and we can move to the other presentations. One, because we're up against lunch, we're up against schedule, and then we're up against finishing the program schedule. And in that case, I would ask Aziz, do you want to go with the presentation?
Okay, thank you very much. Can everyone hear me, please?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I'll be moving on to the DART program presentation. It will be very good for us to talk about this in details, just to show you guys what we really doing at All On and how we are collaborating now. So without further ado, I'll get right to it. So Sharia has kind of touched on this already about what we do at All On and different ways at which we achieve and achieve our impact, right? So I'll just go straight to the presentation. I know most of us here in the room and also online heard about our DAP program, but just for the sake of those that don't, it's really like one of the flagship initiatives under All On. And our major goal is actually to actually help developers to scale. Developers are trying to solve one of Nigeria's major problems through deployment of mini grids and also standalone solar systems. But it's not easy on their part as well if there's no support from the finance side of things and also from other side of things as well. So All On and other partners came around to solve this problem by introducing the DAP program, and it's in collaboration with GAP, which is the Global Energy Alliance for People's Planet, and at the same time Odyssey. So just to address two major problems. First one is aggregated purchasing mechanism. So we understand how tedious it could be to actually source for the solar equipment, right? And we try to address this problem by partnering with Odyssey, right, where we aggregate all the demand from the solar developers in a bid to be able to achieve economic of scale, right? Just looking at one of the major goals for this arm of things, right, we have our ability to reduce the component price by up to 30%. Also, deployment enable us to deploy quickly about over 750,000 connections, which is one of our objectives. And we're also participating in other industry initiatives such as the NEP program, which REA spoke about recently just now, then as well as DREs. So and just in terms of time, I'll just skip through the other ones, reducing the lead times, providing working capital to the looking at the other side of things, which is the equipment financing facility. We know how difficult it is to actually raise funds, and also looking at how expensive the instrument or the equipment that will be needed to actually develop this is. So one of the things that the DAP program is trying to address is also facilitating facilitating equipment financing, right? And also through the aid of our partners, including Odyssey, we're able to achieve this. So moving on, kind of talked about this already, but just to bring more to your attention, what we're trying to address is economics of scale, affordable financing, streamlined procurement processes, and also facilitate grant access and other financing. So I know most of us already know how to apply for that program, but just to remind us and also to expand more on it, is we are across 3 stages. We have the pre-qualification stage, then following the stage 1, and also the approval and documentation stage. We already know that before we come into that program, we should have actually applied we should have actually gotten some documents available on document ready So what we try to do at the presentation stage is actually to see if truly you have that capacity to be able to do what you are saying that you can achieve, right? At the same time, you also, at that particular stage, at the preparation stage, you also want to see some necessary documents, just to touch on it, the qualification application form. At the same time, your grant agreement and your off-take agreements, if available. Then after this stage, then we proceed to the stage one, which is actually the main stage where the investment team will then come in to actually do a thorough review of the opportunity, right? And that entails due diligence, that's commercial due diligence and legal due diligence. We look at your audited financial statements, especially the more recent one of the last 2 years. You look at your financial model, your business plan. Just allow me to talk more on this. Just looking at how it has been done in the past, we've gotten a lot of applications from some developers here, kind of have we at some point not really convinced with the level of financial modeling and also the level of documentation, which we would appreciate if it's done in a more extensive way, just to help our review and to also make it faster in a way, because this is really about creating impact, and it's really good if the necessary documentations are not available, so that can kind of slow down the way things should be, and it might kind of stall us from achieving our goals on time. So after this stage one, we go to the approval stage. So after the investment team has actually done a thorough review, due diligence, also looking at all of that things, we actually take this to our credit committee to evaluate more and deliberate on this. Then after that has been approved, then we do some other necessary documentation, which includes the CP, that's the condition precedents, and some other final agreements and security deals. So after all of this has been confirmed, then we go to disbursement, which we then disburse the funds for procurement of the equipment. Okay, so moving on. Just looking at the major things that is on the term sheet, right? So these are just like indicative terms that we feel is necessary for us to go through. So we have a ticket size of up to $2.5 million at the moment, and is largely more of a debt instrument. Sharif spoke earlier about different kind of ways we kind of instrument that we use to invest in, but for that program it's typically a debt instrument, and the tenure is up to 24 months, that's 2 years. Within that 24 months, we have a 6-month moratorium. I know a lot of questions will pop up around Naira facility, because what's going on there and there. So that one would be actually around, as the case may be, to put into proper perspective. Just judging by how we will do the transaction, then we can decide if we want to do Naira or not. So another thing we have to take into consideration is the interest rate. The dollar interest rate may be between 7 to 8%, which is which is in a way very which is in a way lower than when you compare it to the market rates. As well, if you look at the Naira facility as well, it's also around slightly above these levels. Looking at the security, in as much as we actually want to make an impact in Nigeria, at the same time we also putting some policies in place to secure our facility, and one of them includes insurance, which is basic insurance. So we have loan on the equipment being financed, and we have first loss paying on it as well. We also have like a charge on the grant and also on the proceeds account. At the same time, we will also be a joint signatory to the grant and proceeds account. Let's moving on to the repayment structure. I already talked about the moratorium. After 6 months, then as the case may be, just judging by how things are going, we expect that after 6 months to start to pay back the interest and the principal, because we're expecting that at some point in time we'll be receiving the performance grants, and also the project is expected to be generating cash flow, so that will be able to help to meet up the 3-year tenure that we are investing for. However, just looking at how we do our investment, we will have factored this in reviewing the deal. So, but this is just general term sheet that we want everyone to be aware of. So just moving on. So just as on the investment side of things, just looking at how the achievements so far from the DAT program, right? So far since the launch of this program, we've actually supported over 50 mini grids, and we've actually approved credit to about 13 developers. Just going by the value, that's about $20 million. Just looking at the SES systems, that's over 2,533, and the expected connection is about 133,000. So just enjoy your time. I'll just move to okay. So just let me just join more on the key updates to the program. I know we already talked about some of them earlier, right? So just starting from the right, that 4.0 is actually incoming, right? We still in deliberation to increase the ticket size. Earlier I mentioned up to $2.5 million, but currently in talks to increase it to like $5 million. But as we get this approval, we will let you know. Right, so let's talk about the DRE's grant. I don't want to be repeating because of time. I talked about the process, the application process already. And thank you very much. So at this point, I would allow technical senior associates to present. Then we now take questions. Thank you. Hi, Dennis.
Hi.
Okay,
thank you.
Yes,
thank you very much, Aziz. Thank you very much. Thank you for everyone joining in online and in the room. I will be expanding on the data application process. In particular, I'll be speaking on the technical evaluation for this program. So, what do we do when we get an application? We need to carry out due diligence from developers. Aziz has buttressed a couple of things in there, and we carry out due diligence. Part of it is the technical due diligence. And what is the technical due diligence process? It's basically a process we conduct which will form a detailed assessment of the technical aspect of a renewable energy project before investment. And in a broadly speaking, what does it entail? It entails a thorough investigation of the technical specifications of this project to ensure clarity and precision brought on by a developer for financing, in particular through the DAT program. This process evaluation, we try to understand the methodologies that will be used in this project to identify the strengths and weaknesses. We also try to identify risks these projects could bring upon to ensure that these projects are successful. What's the process of carrying out a technical due diligence? Is to basically ensure project viability, alignment with the industry standards as well. So, what are the key components we look for when we're conducting a technical due diligence? We try to understand the site assessment. What has been done during the site assessment? What are the energy models? These communities, what do they consume? Do they have PUEs? What's their current state of energy consumption? What will be their future state? We review system designs. We try to understand how have you sized your system? Does it cater for the now? Does it cater for the future? Are you in compliance with regulations, ensuring you have licensings you adhere to safety standards. Of course, as I spoke on the financial viability and operational sustainability. How long will these mini grids, interconnected mini grids, last? How will they be run? What kind of components were used? So we try to assess all this while we're conducting the due diligence, and in particular, of course, the technical due diligence. On my next slide, I will present the processes we take in All On. When a developer submits, or a developer wants, is requesting for funding for their energy access projects or electrification, we ask them to provide a couple of documentations first for review, which is the due diligence. And the first step will be we send out a checklist to the developers outlining everything we would like to see in documentation form and how this will be aggregated. The second step will be we review. We receive these documentations, we review them, we make comments, and if need be, we can also get back to them to get further clarity, which is the third step here. So after reviewing, we try to understand what they're trying to do. If there are any snags, we get clarity, and we align. And if needed, they've sent further documentations or improve on the technicalities. That is noted. And the fourth step, which is the final, once the technical assessment has been done and carried out, it's also reviewed by the investment and finance teams. Now, to give a snapshot of what these documentations could be, I have a couple of slides. Basically, this is a checklist. It's an Excel checklist we send to our developers who apply for that program through us. We have a couple of folders and documents we may require financials from them. From the slides, you can see what will be requested from in the community engagements, exclusivity agreement, stakeholder engagement. These are documentations we'll all review internally at All On, just to understand the viability of this project, the sustainability, and what this project is going to entail. Commercial agreements, are there any commercial agreements? Is it a CNI? Is it a mini grid? Is it an interconnected mini grid? We will review all these documentations. Then there are some pre-construction documentations which will be required again from the developer to send to us. Next slide. This will speak more to the technical aspect of the proposed projects, feasibility reports. This is really important. It outlines how the energy assessment was made in these communities. Are there PUEs? How much energy do they consume now? And this will be the forming basis of how and what you design for these communities for the moment and for the nearest present times. Other documentations are listed out there. Commercial points of interest. Do they have? Is this an agro community? Do you think they may expand in specific PUEs? All this will help you in the design stages for your projects. In particular, speaking to the off-grid and the IMGs as well. Down to the technical designs. It will be expected for the developers to submit documentations expressing their project briefs, engineering philosophy. That in particular I find very interesting, and it explains what the problem really is, how they're planning to solve it. Energy requirement, my solution, this is what I plan to do. This is my sizing, how much energy am I going to generate, how much ESS I'm going to install, am I putting a generator in there, how all these components will intermingle and provide the needed energy to the community. We have other documentations, energy modeling, that will involve designs or simulations, energy simulations, PVCs, helioscope, HOMA. This will give us better insight into understanding how you are going to build out the thought process, the technical thought process that has gone through in deciding what will be implemented. Single line diagrams, equipment details. If you're using a ground mount, we would like to understand, okay, what is the design? Is it in conformation with your simulations? Is it going to last the test of time, 20, 25 years? Next slide will show, okay, how compliant are you towards HSC? Your documentations, your HSC policies, safety policies, work at height policies, every document to show how safe you are and you are in compliance with safety. Operational and maintenance, which really pertains to after commissioning. What's your plan for your plant or your mini grid or your installation? Is there remote monitoring? How are you going to monitor it? Life cycle of your equipment, how often are you going to change them out? So on and so forth. Of course, company details will come in there, which probably most likely the investment team will go through. And this slide, what do we look out for when we review all these documentations, especially technical documentations? What are we really looking out for? We are looking out for your design assessment. Is your load inaccurate load profiling? Did you carry out a proper site survey, or was a proper site survey carried out? Was it an estimate? How accurate is it to reality? Have you considered when you bring in power to these communities, how fast will they grow? Will they be growth? Lack of scalability. This accounts for, like I just mentioned, what happens in the nearest future, in the next 1 year, 1.5 years, 2 years. Will your mini grid cater for the load that will be present at that point in time? During your design stages, insufficient storages and inverter capacity. Will your load outgrow the growth of these communities? When you bring in power, when you bring in electricity, we would like to also understand, and we look at it and we collaborate with the developers and we ask the necessary questions. Overlooking the environmental factors, where are you going to install this project? Is it in a dusty area? Is it in a windy area? How does that take into account to your construction? If it's dusty, how often are you going to clean the panels? What's your O&M strategy for it? If it's in a windy, rainy, thunderstorm area, how have you built this solution to cater for such an environment? We look at the OEMs you partner with to acquire your equipment. Are they well known? Are they reliable? Do they have are they tier one? Are they will they last the test of time? Do they have a track record of performance? So these are a couple of things we look at while we are trying to evaluate a developer through the due diligence process. Thank you. If you have any questions, you could write it down in the chat and we'll get back to you.
For that person that started clapping, God bless you. For us in the room, I want us to do something. I think I've been walking around, so I'm not feeling. But so can we stand up and stretch? We've been sitting down for like 3 hours. So do you mind standing up and stretching? Come on, feel free. Let's stretch. We need to stretch. What do they call it again? All right, let's stretch. So while we're stretching, please can we get our questions ready? If you have questions online here as well, please let's get them ready. Oh, fantastic. I've been cracking. Doesn't that feel good, sir? It feels good, right? Yeah, I said, yeah, it feels good. It feels good. All right, thank you so much.
I was in the middle of
does anyone have a
presenting
question?
my slides, but it does.
Questions, please, in the house, virtually. You can signify by raising up your hand if you have a question online. Jerry, please, is there where we can see?
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's an AJ raised his hands in the online.
Sorry?
AJ, yes.
Okay. And please, can we also...
Sorry, I never unraised my hand. I apologize. Sorry.
Okay, so we... okay, so we have May Ikamba. So, May Ikamba, you have 31 minutes to ask your question, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to ask a question regarding the underserved and the underserved and unserved communities. What is the process for application for these particular projects? Thank you.
Okay, that's another question. Hadiza, are you still online? Would you like to take that? Anyone from REA? Toby? Okay. Okay, so we'll be responding to questions in the chat box. So if you don't get a response, please be rest assured we'll attend to them. Okay, so we have Tunji Alabi. Okay, unmute and ask your question, please.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Tunji Alabi. I am the CEO of Invertel Africa. My question goes to All On. I can see that your presentation and your programs are skewed towards mini grids. Do you do anything on productive use?
Okay, I'll take that. I will take this. This is Shaya from All On. Yes, we are interested in projects of productive use. We are very, very keen on productive use. So, if you remember that slide where I pointed out the kinds of things what we look for in the projects we fund, as long as all of those things are present, we are definitely interested in funding productive use.
All the following processes that speak to productive use do not necessarily speak to the mini grids. Is there a different process?
Okay, so the presentation you saw on technical due diligence was really related to the DART program. And so the DART program is a program that, really is best tailored for programs like the DS program, which a very significant component of the DS program is mini grids. So that particular content was talking about mini grids, but it doesn't talk about all of the due diligence that we do on all the different types of investments we make. I hope that clarifies.
It does. Where does one get that information from? Specifically for productive use.
So what kind of information are you looking for specifically?
How one applies, what the process is.
The way to apply is, you go online, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, we'll share our contacts. Just reach out to the team and introduce your company, what you do, and if you have a deck or a business plan or whatever, share it with us, and then we'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Any other question? You have Sheldon Young. You can unmute and ask the questions to the
Okay, good afternoon. Okay, my name is Yang from Chin Electric. We are Chinese OEM. Actually, we have supplied our equipment like prefabricated substation and transformers, panels for REA phase 2 and phase 3. I mean, AED and ED. It was supplied for some EPC contractor. Okay, it's because that project is on the World Bank and AFTB payments. So based on this new project model, maybe the new payment term, like I remember it was 20 advance payment, 60% within 12 months, and remaining 20%. So my question is, based on the new payment terms, what about the payment term for the OEM or OEM? Is it the same payment term, or we can negotiate with the EPC contractor or the developer with the different payment terms? Thank you.
So I'll apologize and say that I'm not sure that I understood the question. I think I understood you were asking if we can support OEMs. Was that the question?
Yes, I'm asking the question is the payment term for OEM, because this the new is the different payment model is the this DRES project. So I mean, actually, if the OEM needs to be involved in this kind of payment terms or investment, anything, what do we do? Or we just negotiate this payment term with the EPC contractor or the developer?
Yeah, I think so. I think, yes, that's what you would be looking to do. You would, as an OEM, then you definitely want to integrate with the EPC contractors, and then the EPC maybe is hired by the developer of the rest of. I think that's probably the way that would go, yes.
It's okay. Thank you. That's my question.
Big shot.
Thank you very much. Will that be all for the questions? Okay, we have what's his name? You've been very active. Please tell us where you are calling from. You've been so active, you've been patient, you've been listening, you've been having fun. Thank you so much, Laza.
First one, client. Big shot.
So you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Thank you very much. As I said, I'm Miki Lazar. I'm connecting right now from Israel, from Tel Aviv. And I have a comment, or I'd say a remark, to the forum. During the whole webinar, nobody talked about the e-mobility aspect. Now, we developed together with our Nigerian partner, Revive Earth, we developed a very substantial value proposition to convert KK, petrol KK, into electric KK. And these electric vehicles can be a very substantial load on mini grids. Together with that, these e-tricycles use a battery which can easily be deployed in a household without any connection, and with a simple inverter that we can supply or even use DC power, we can electrify households which are far away from the wires, or in locations where deploying the wires would be very costly. So I don't see exactly how we can bring this capacity, this innovation, to the relevant stakeholders, maybe the REA and also All On.
it's not clear for us how we can bring that. It's a major innovation. It can disrupt the whole subject of water electrification. So we want to present it in a way that the stakeholders will understand. How can you recommend me to operate further? Thank you.
It's live.
Thank you so much, Laza.
Well, I'm not sure to what extent, should I say the ecosystem that you're describing falls under the DS, I can access with the DS program. So from that point of view, I'm not sure how to answer the question as well. So
I will provide some insight. Productive use is actually a major component of being the mini grid of the standalone solar pump. My name is Toby from the REA. So the productive makes up a very key component of what we're trying to do. And under that, so for the standalone solar component, we are trying to carve out some funds to promote e-mobility infrastructure, because we don't have enough to actually deploy the tricycles and the vehicles. So if we're able to deploy charge stations and battery spots on our PPG program, the developers are the ones that will bring the sites and conduct the energy audit and then attach whatever productive use appliance they need to attach at the application phase level. So this conversation is probably at the private sector level, because we are not one of the MNTs that the sites are already selected through a group of consultants, which maybe that might be another option for you to, which is open to tender. Most of PPG sites are actually supplied by the developers with the energy audit and community engagement details. They will do the designing and they just submit it to us, and they will sign their agreement based on that particular site and location.
Thank you very much. I understood. So we will contact developers and offer them this application to increase the uptake for the mini grids. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Would that be all for the hands raised? Derek, please confirm that will be all. And no question in the room. No question in the room. Derek, would that be all?
Yeah. Sorry, I asked that question which has not been answered.
Okay. Who is speaking, please?
My name is May. My name is May Ikemba, and I asked a question, just a simple question on the application process for the underserved and unserved communities. How do we go about the application process? That has not been answered.
Okay, is there a material that will address it?
We answered the question more than 3 times. Once you log on to Odyssey, you will have access to the application guide documents. So go and register on the REA website. Click on either the MST or the performance-based grant or supply side subsidy link. Once you have the Odyssey login, kindly go to the documents folder. You will have access to the application guide documents.
This
okay, thank you.
Email in the chat. Okay, so on behalf of
can you guys
all, I would like to say a huge thank you so much for your patience.
Just check the chat. There's someone sent his email like Toby from REA.
Thank you so much for being a part of this.
Toby, his name should be in the chat. I want to get it.
I would like to say thank you to all of you for collaborating. This is still an ongoing conversation on this, and the issues right on this one for better and stronger engagement ahead of time. So thank you everyone and all the participants who made the time to be, online to listen to us using all hours and energy. Thank you everyone. And just in case you have any questions and all of that, please feel free to reach out, just like the latest REA show. So tonight, team will do your favorite presentation. All right.
Thank you.